Maybe we can start. Good morning everyone again, and welcome back to the second day of this Mahamudra presentation. Just one thing before we start is the schedule today has changed a little bit. So this morning the schedule will be the same, this session will go till 10:45, and then a morning tea break till 11:15. And then the second session will go to 12:30. But now instead of lunch at 12:30, there'll be the Dharma Friends final talk from 12:30 to 1. And then at 1 till 2 will be lunch. And then 2 till 3 will be the first afternoon session. 3 to 3:30 tea break, and then 3:30 to 4:30 will be the final session. So we're finishing 30 minutes earlier at 4:30. So that's the schedule for today. What I'd like to do is begin this session with a meditation, of a Vipassana meditation, of course, because that's the topic for this weekend. And as we saw in the text yesterday, when we begin our investigation, it's often recommended we direct that investigation to me, the person. There really does seem to be a me existing here independently. Is there such a me here to be found anywhere? So let's do that practice, and I want to do it a specific method, because that's the method that's is explained in the text in the next section. So once we've done the practice and when I explain it, then we'll be able to relate to the meditation we've already done. So let's do that practice. As an act of loving kindness for yourself, allow your awareness to descend into the body and simply become aware of sensations throughout the body. And if you notice any areas of tightness or tension in any part of the body, then use the out-breath to relax and release that tightness or tension. And bringing your awareness to the area of your face and softening and relaxing all the muscles in the face. Mouth and jaw soft and relaxed. And all the muscles around the eyes soft and relaxed. In this way, allowing the entire body to become completely relaxed, completely at ease. Allowing the breathing to flow naturally and effortlessly. and setting the mind in a state of ease and relaxation. Allowing the mind to come to rest in the present moment. And simply becoming aware of the rhythm of the breath. Now think of a situation where someone is praising you for something wonderful you did. And just rest in that experience of the me who's being praised. Now this me who's being praised here, can this me be found anywhere? So first thoroughly search the body and look for the me who's being praised. Can the me who's being praised be found anywhere within the mind? So again, search thoroughly every part of the mind and look for the me who's being praised. Now, apart from the body and the mind, what else is there here? If there's nothing more than the body and the mind here, then where is the me who possesses this body and the mind? Where is the me who's being praised? If you can't find the me who's being praised, simply rest in the experience of not finding. Knowing that there's no me to be found. Now, even if you didn't find the me who's being praised, isn't there someone who's experiencing all of this? So there is a me here. But how can this me exist if we don't seem to be able to find it? The me exists as something merely labelled on the basis of the body that is sitting here and the mind that is focusing on the breath. The merely labelled me is here being praised. So let's review a few of the things we've covered yesterday before we move on. So of course the text we're following here is called The Main Path of the Victors, a root text for the precious Gelug Kagyu tradition of Mahamudra. And we saw here that this Sanskrit term Mahamudra, mudra means stamp or seal, Maha means great. And when we talk about stamp or seal here, we're talking about emptiness. That emptiness stamps or seals all phenomena, meaning that all phenomena have as their ultimate nature emptiness. And that's great because if we come to realise that, we can achieve the great goal of liberation from suffering. So therefore Mahamudra is all about coming to realise emptiness. But of course here in Mahamudra, the emphasis is on focusing on the mind itself in coming to realise emptiness. So often Mahamudra is called nature of the mind practice. We're coming to realise the ultimate nature of the mind. And thereby, of course, we can come to realise the ultimate nature of all phenomena. And we saw here that it's the Gelug Kagyu tradition of Mahamudra. So we saw that this system of practice of Mahamudra was brought in from India to Tibet and forms the basis of the Kagyu school of Tibetan Buddhism. But then also Lama Tsongkhapa, who's the founder of the Gelug school of Tibetan Buddhism, also received these instructions from the Kagyu lineage and then synthesised that with his own profound understanding of emptiness, and hence we have this lineage of Gelug Mahamudra, and that's what we're following based on a text by Panchen Losang Chogi Gyaltsen. And we saw there in the text on page 1 that there are 3 parts to the text. There's the preliminaries, the actual practice and conclusion. The preliminaries, of course, were the foundation practices that we need to engage in to be able to practice Mahamudra, this nature of mind practice. And we went through those, of course, in some detail 2 years ago. And we saw very briefly there yesterday that some of those, what they call common preliminaries, were described in that prayers for meditation, those 4 thoughts that turn the mind. And so it's very important that we establish this basis, this foundation. Otherwise, I think you'll have no platform for engaging in Mahamudra practice and probably not have any enthusiasm to practice. And then even if we do, we'll probably end up in not a very good direction. So it's important to engage in these preliminary practices to have a very good foundation. And of course, here this Mahamudra practice is part of what's called the Mahayana Buddhism, which of course the goal of the spiritual path is enlightenment. So therefore, part of those preliminaries, the basis, is cultivating this aspiration of bodhicitta, this aspiration for enlightenment for the benefit of others, that this is really the support for this practice of Mahamudra. And then in the actual practice here, we saw on the top of page 2 there, that there are two approaches to Mahamudra, or there's two systems of Mahamudra. There's Sutra Mahamudra and Tantra Mahamudra. And we saw there that Sutra Mahamudra, a little bit further down page 2, it says Sutra Mahamudra refers to ways of meditating on emptiness. So in Sutra Mahamudra, the two main core practices we saw were shamatha and vipassana. That shamatha is about cultivating single-pointed attention, single-pointed concentration, and then on that basis to enter into this vipassana practice to come to realize emptiness. And if we want to realize emptiness, to fully penetrate nature of reality, then we need a very calm, clear, focused mind. We need this mind of shamatha. And so then Sutra Mahamudra really refers to those two core practices. First, practice shamatha, develop single-pointed concentration, then use that in our vipassana practice to come to realize emptiness. And then in Tantra Mahamudra, here on page 2, it said Tantra Mahamudra refers to the clear light mind, and it goes on. And of course, the clear light mind is another name for this very subtle level of mind. So we saw that here we can talk about 3 levels of mind. The mind that we have now is called the coarse mind, with all of our thoughts, emotions, and mental afflictions and so forth. And then, of course, within this coarse mind, there's a whole bandwidth, a whole range of levels. And from psychology there, within that bandwidth, we often talk about conscious and subconscious, or conscious and unconscious. And actually, because our mind is not very trained, a lot of mental activity are at this subconscious or unconscious level. We're not aware of it. We're only aware of the very superficial level. And what we find, of course, is that when we engage in this shamatha practice, that threshold between conscious and unconscious drops dramatically. We start to become more aware of more and more subtle mental activity. And if we continue that shamatha practice, we'll be able to drop that threshold right to the bottom of the coarse mind and go beyond that to the next level of mind called the subtle level of mind. And when we achieve that subtle level of mind, that is the level of mind, that's shamatha, and that's what we're using in our vipassana practice to traverse the path to enlightenment. And so we have that both in the Theravada traditions and the Mahayana Buddhist traditions. So here, of course, that is the Sutra Mahamudra. But Tantra Mahamudra is talking about gaining access to an even deeper level of mind, the very subtle level of mind. Here it's called the mind of clear light. It's given many different names: primordial consciousness, pristine awareness, rikpa, many different names. And in Tantra Mahamudra, we have these two practices of generation stage and completion stage, which help us to gain access to that very deep level of mind. And then we use that to come to realize nature of mind, to realize emptiness of mind. And then we move along the path with that. Because it's a deeper level of mind, it's more powerful, we can accelerate the path to enlightenment. So Tantra and Vajrayana is about gaining access to that deeper level of mind so we can move faster along the spiritual path. And then briefly yesterday we talked about this essence Mahamudra that some in the Mahamudra and Dzogchen traditions talk about, that this sort of pointing out instruction and this non-meditation instruction. And of course that essence Mahamudra is also operating at the level of the very subtle mind. But of course to be able to practice that very sort of pithy instructions, we need to have a basis in Tantra Mahamudra. To practice Tantra Mahamudra, we need a basis in Sutra Mahamudra. To practice Sutra Mahamudra, we need a basis in the preliminaries. So we can see this as a step-by-step approach to practicing Mahamudra. And of course here, this main part of the text then is establishing that foundation in the Sutra Mahamudra. So 2 years ago, we looked at the shamatha practice of cultivating a calm, clear, focused mind. And because here in Mahamudra practice, when we come to Vipassana practice, we are investigating the mind itself. Therefore, in shamatha practice, it's very much recommended that the object we use in shamatha is also the mind. Of course, in shamatha we can use one of many different objects, but here in Mahamudra it's very much recommended to use the mind as the object, because that's what we're going to investigate later in Vipassana. And so we had that practice there of observing the mind or resting in awareness as the shamatha practice. And then yesterday we started the Vipassana practice, the explanation, and we saw there that, and that started at the bottom of page 6, we saw there in the text here there's 2 outlines. The first one was giving us some very pithy instructions within the Kagyu Mahamudra tradition on how to come to, to introduce the ultimate nature of the mind, to come to realise the ultimate nature of the mind. And then we did a little practice of that yesterday, of looking for the mind. Where is it? Does it have a colour? Does it have a shape? How big is it? And so forth. So that is a very direct approach to come to realise the empty nature of the mind. And then the second outline where we are now, of course, is then a very extensive presentation presenting in a very clear, methodical way this emptiness that we're trying to come to realise in Mahamudra practice. And so here, emptiness, of course, is a translation of the Sanskrit term shunyata. And emptiness, of course, is saying that nothing exists independently, that everything's empty of independent existence. Of course, now, it doesn't appear like that. It appears, in fact, the opposite. It appears like there's an independent me here and an independent objective world out there. And of course, that's how things always appear to us. So there's no reason to question appearances. Because if we ask anyone else, everyone else will agree. Yes, there's a me here, there's a world there. Of course, obvious, look. But here, what we're saying is if we really investigate that, we'll come to see that things do not exist as they appear. There is no independent world there, no independent me here. And of course, we also find that in modern physics, particularly when we venture into quantum mechanics, is also now modern physicists are really questioning the objectivity of the world. I mean, historically, of course, physics was all about trying to describe in detail that objective physical world that seems to be there. But now in that investigation, particularly with the advent of quantum physics, then they're really coming to say, well, hang on, maybe things are not as they appear. So in fact, I've got a couple of quotes here from some well-known physicists regarding this. So I just thought they might be helpful to read them out. The first is from the theoretical physicist John Wheeler, who's one of the sort of the leading theoretical physicists of the 20th century, from Princeton University, and he says, "Useful as it is under everyday circumstances to say that the world exists out there, independent of us, that view can no longer be upheld. There is a strange sense in which this is a participatory universe." And then from another very well-known quantum physicist, Anton Zeilinger from University of Vienna, who actually has a lot of conversations and discussions with His Holiness Dalai Lama, he says the following: "One may be tempted to assume that whenever we ask questions of nature, of the world there outside, there is reality existing independently of what can be said about it. We will now claim that such a position is void of any meaning. It is obvious that any property or feature of reality out there can only be based on information we receive. There cannot be